Look, I need to be completely honest with you right now. While everyone around you is scrolling through their phones, planning holiday parties, and arguing about whether to get a real tree or a fake one this year, there's something genuinely terrifying happening that most people are choosing to ignore. The folks who spend their entire careers responding to disasters, the ones who pull bodies out of frozen homes and document what went catastrophically wrong, they're practically screaming at us to pay attention. And what they're saying should make your blood run cold. We're not talking about some distant theoretical danger here. Think back over just the last couple of years. Remember those images of entire neighborhoods plunged into darkness for a week straight? Remember seeing those frozen bodies discovered in Texas homes after people simply ran out of options? Remember the grocery store footage showing absolute pandemonium as desperate families fought over the last bottles of water? That wasn't some third world country dealing with a catastrophe. That was right here, in communities that looked exactly like yours, filled with people who probably thought they were invincible too. Here's what keeps emergency response veterans awake at night. Our infrastructure is literally crumbling beneath our feet. We're running our modern lives on electrical grids designed in the 1950s, water systems with pipes that should have been replaced decades ago, and we're slamming them with weather patterns that are increasingly violent and unpredictable. It's not a question of if these systems will fail catastrophically during the next major winter event. It's a question of when they'll fail, and whether you'll still be alive when they do. But here's the thing that might actually save your life. You don't need to drain your bank account or transform your basement into some kind of militarized bunker to survive what's coming. What you absolutely do need, however, are 13 specific things that will stand between your family and a genuinely horrific death when the power dies, the water stops flowing, and you realize with absolute terror that nobody is coming to save you. Not for days. Maybe not for weeks. The water crisis that will kill you faster than you think. Let's start with the single most critical element of survival. And I need you to understand something right now. You will die without water far, far faster than you will die without food. We're not talking about some slow, peaceful fading away. We're talking about your organs shutting down, your brain swelling, hallucinations, seizures, and an agonizing death within just 3 to 4 days. Everyone parrots the same basic guideline: 1 gallon per person, per day, for 3 days minimum. So a family of 4 needs 12 gallons, right? Let me tell you why that formula is dangerously inadequate and could quite literally get your children killed. First of all, that's the absolute rock-bottom minimum for survival in perfect conditions. But you won't be in perfect conditions. You'll be in a freezing house, probably panicking, possibly injured, and your body will be burning through water faster than you can imagine. You'll be breathing heavily in the cold air, sweating under layers of emergency blankets, and your stressed body will be demanding more hydration just to keep your brain functioning. But here's the part that nobody talks about until it's too late. That gallon per day calculation only accounts for drinking water. It completely ignores every other essential use for water that becomes a life or death necessity when modern plumbing fails. When the municipal water system collapses, and it absolutely will collapse during a severe winter event, you can't just walk over to your toilet and flush it anymore. You need to manually pour water into the tank to flush waste, or you and your family will be living in your own filth within 24 hours. That's not just disgusting. It's a direct path to serious illness that could kill someone in your household, while emergency rooms are overwhelmed and unreachable. You need water to maintain even the most basic hygiene, to wash your hands after handling raw food, or dealing with bathroom situations, to clean wounds before they become infected, to sponge bathe children who are getting sick from the stress and cold. All of these critical needs devour water at an alarming rate. Here's the nightmare scenario that plays out in real emergencies. The weather forecast suddenly turns dire. The alert hits your phone. You think, okay, I'll just fill up my bathtub and some pots right now. But here's what's already happening that you don't know about. Thousands of other people got the same alert at the exact same moment. And they're all frantically turning on every faucet in their homes. The water pressure is already dropping across your entire region. Meanwhile, temperatures are plummeting, and water mains that were installed 40 years ago are beginning to crack and rupture under the freezing ground. By the time you actually make it to your bathroom faucet, you might get a pathetic trickle that gives you maybe 2 or 3 gallons before it stops completely. You've just condemned your family to die of dehydration. Municipal water treatment plants are completely dependent on electricity. When they lose power, they shut down. Period. The massive underground pipes that carry water to your neighborhood are buried in soil that's freezing solid, expanding and shattering those aging pipes like glass. And your own home's plumbing? Those pipes running through your walls and crawl spaces are ticking time bombs when temperatures drop below freezing. When they burst, and they will burst, you won't just lose your water supply, you'll have a flooding catastrophe on your hands in the middle of a blizzard. So, what's the real number you need? Honestly, you should have at least 1 gallon per person per day for a full 2 weeks. That's 56 gallons for a family of 4. Yes, that sounds like an enormous amount. Yes, it will take up space. But would you rather have your basement look a little crowded? Or would you rather watch your children's lips crack and bleed, their eyes sink into their skulls, and their confused cries for water that you can't provide haunt you for the rest of your life? And for the love of everything you hold dear, you do not store this water in old milk jugs or juice containers that you've rinsed out. Those containers are designed to biodegrade. They'll leak, they'll crack, they'll grow bacteria, and you'll discover this horrifying fact only when you desperately grab one during an emergency and find it's either empty or filled with toxic slime. Spend the money on actual food-grade water storage containers, the thick, durable kind that are specifically designed for long-term storage. Store them somewhere cool and dark, away from direct sunlight and away from any chemicals like gasoline or cleaning supplies that could contaminate them through the plastic. Get a permanent marker and write the fill date on each container. Every 6 months, put a reminder in your phone calendar right now, empty those containers, refill them with fresh water, and update the date. Water doesn't technically spoil, but it can develop an off taste, and the containers themselves will eventually degrade if you just leave them sitting for years. Supplement your storage containers with several cases of commercially bottled water. These are perfect for grabbing quickly if you need to evacuate, and the individual bottles are easier to ration and distribute. The food. Nobody will eat when they're already terrified. Now let's talk about the second most common way people fail catastrophically at emergency preparation. They stock up on food that nobody in their household can actually stand to eat. I've seen this mistake over and over again. Well-meaning parents spend hundreds of dollars on dense survival food bars, freeze-dried military rations, and bizarre shelf-stable meals that taste like cardboard soaked in sadness. Their logic is straightforward. If we're starving, we'll eat anything, right? Wrong. Catastrophically wrong. Here's what actually happens in a real emergency. Your family is already stressed beyond belief. The house is freezing. It's dark except for whatever meager lighting you've managed. Everyone is scared, probably arguing, possibly injured or sick. The last thing anyone can handle psychologically is forcing down food that makes them want to gag. Children will refuse to eat it and will literally go hungry rather than consume something they find repulsive, which sends their energy crashing and makes them more susceptible to hypothermia. Adults will skip meals because they'd rather avoid the unpleasant experience, which means their decision-making ability degrades just when they need it most. You need food that your family will actually, willingly consume. Ideally, food that provides some small measure of comfort during an incredibly uncomfortable situation. The federal recommendation says 3 days of food. That's a joke. Major winter storms don't wrap up neatly in 72 hours like some kind of made-for-TV disaster movie. Roads stay impassable for days after the storm passes. Power companies work around the clock, but it still takes a week or more to restore electricity to everyone. Stores remain closed or sell out instantly when they do open. You need a full 7 to 10 days of food, minimum. And that's assuming nothing goes worse than expected. Spoiler alert, things always go worse than expected. Build your stockpile around canned goods that you actually recognize and eat during normal life. Canned chili, hearty soups with meat and vegetables, canned stews, tuna, chicken, beans. These provide the protein and calories your body desperately needs when it's working overtime to stay warm in freezing temperatures. Every single degree your body temperature drops, your metabolism kicks into high gear trying to warm you back up, and that burns through calories at an incredible rate. Peanut butter is an absolute godsend in emergencies. It's absolutely packed with calories and protein. It requires zero refrigeration even after you open it. It lasts for months or even years in storage. And in a true worst-case scenario, you can eat it directly from the jar with your finger if necessary. Stock up on multiple jars. Granola bars, Mealy trail mix that combines nuts and dried fruit, instant oatmeal packets that only require hot water, sturdy crackers that won't crumble into dust, shelf-stable milk in those aseptic boxes, and those squeezable fruit pouches that kids love. All of these are excellent options that combine nutrition with familiarity. Here's a critical psychological element. Familiar comfort food provides genuine mental health benefits during extreme stress. When everything feels chaotic and terrifying, eating something that reminds you of normal life can actually help stabilize your mental state and keep panic at bay. Shop at discount stores and dollar stores for your emergency food supplies. The exact same brands cost significantly less. And we're talking about stockpiling here. So every dollar you save means you can buy more supplies. But here's the discipline that separates people who survive from people who die. You must rotate your stock religiously. Every 6 months, go through your emergency food supply. Check every single expiration date. Move the items that are closest to expiring into your regular kitchen, use them in your normal meal rotation, and replace them with fresh items. If you don't do this, you will absolutely, guaranteed, wake up during a genuine emergency, reach for your carefully stored food with relief, and discover that everything expired 2 years ago and is now potentially unsafe to eat. Also, and this is crucial, accept right now that you might have to eat everything cold. Your backup heating method might fail. Your fuel might run out. Your cooking device might break. You still need to eat because calories equal body heat equals survival. Make sure everything you store is edible straight from the can without heating. The tiny tool that makes your entire food supply useless. This brings us to the third item, which costs about $5 but is absolutely critical. A high-quality manual can opener. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that emergency shelters report this problem constantly. Families arrive with garbage bags full of canned food and no way to open a single can. They're standing there, exhausted and traumatized, holding their entire food supply while their children cry from hunger. And it's all completely inaccessible. Electric can openers are completely useless when the power dies. Pull-tab cans are convenient, but during a panic-buying event at grocery stores, those are the absolute first items to disappear from the shelves, because everyone has the same idea. Yet you cannot rely on finding them when you need them. Do not, I repeat, do not buy one of those flimsy, cheap can openers that cost $1 at the grocery store checkout. Those things slip constantly. They jam on the can rim. They bend and break. And trying to use one when you're already stressed and exhausted will drive you to absolute madness. Invest in a solid, comfortable, well-constructed hand-crank can opener. The kind with thick metal construction and comfortable handles. Test it immediately on several different types and sizes of cans to make sure it works smoothly. Then store it in a specific designated location with your emergency food supplies. Not in a cluttered kitchen drawer where it will inevitably get lost or buried under takeout menus and loose batteries when you desperately need it. But the silent killer, lurking in your garage. Item number 4 addresses something that kills people every single winter. Yet people continue making the same fatal mistake. You need a safe method to heat food and water when the power grid collapses, with massive emphasis on the word safe. When your modern kitchen becomes useless because there's no electricity, your first instinct will be to figure out how to cook something warm. This is the exact moment when many people make a decision that kills them and everyone they love. Carbon monoxide poisoning doesn't announce itself with flashing lights and alarm bells. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. It's completely undetectable to human senses. What happens is this. You bring your propane camping grill into the kitchen just for a few minutes to heat up some soup. Or you figure the garage is fine because there's a little gap under the door for ventilation. Or you set up your charcoal grill on the covered patio right outside the window. The carbon monoxide builds up silently. You start feeling a little dizzy and tired. You think it's just stress from the emergency situation. You sit down for a moment. You feel increasingly drowsy. Maybe you even think, I'll just close my eyes for a second. And you never wake up. Your children never wake up. Your spouse never wakes up. Emergency responders find your entire family dead in your home, with a still-burning grill nearby. This happens dozens of times every winter. Dozens of entire families. Gone. Because they thought they were being careful, they thought, just this once would be fine. They thought they'd only run it for a few minutes. Just listen to me very carefully. Never, under any circumstances whatsoever, use a propane grill indoors. Never use a charcoal grill indoors or in a garage, even with the door open. Never use a camping stove designed for outdoor use inside your home. Never run a gasoline generator anywhere near your living space. Your safe options for indoor cooking are extremely limited, and you need to know what they are before an emergency forces you to make dangerous decisions. Single-burner butane stoves that are specifically designed and rated for indoor catering use are your best option. They're portable, relatively affordable, reasonably safe when used according to instructions, and the fuel canisters are stable and easy to store for long periods. Canned heat, that jellied fuel you see under chafing dishes at buffets, is another option, though it's not very powerful. It won't boil a large pot of water quickly, but it can warm soup or heat small amounts of water over time. If you have any fuel-burning cooking device in your home, you absolutely must have working carbon monoxide detectors on every level of your house. Test them every single month. Replace the batteries twice a year on a schedule you'll remember. Many people do it when they change their clocks for daylight saving time. If those alarms sound, get everyone outside immediately. Don't investigate, don't try to find the source, don't grab anything. Just get out. And here's the hard truth you need to accept right now. If you cannot cook safely with absolutely certain proper ventilation, then you will eat your food cold. A cold meal is infinitely better than dying from carbon monoxide poisoning. Yes, make peace with that reality before the emergency happens. When your body becomes your enemy. Which brings us to item number 5. The thing that will determine whether you live or die when your furnace stops working and the temperature inside your home starts dropping toward freezing. Multiple layers of serious warmth. Federal emergency guidelines emphasize this so heavily because hypothermia is not some distant threat that only happens to mountain climbers. It's a very real danger that kills people inside their own homes during winter power outages. The very young and the elderly are especially vulnerable, but don't fool yourself into thinking that being a healthy adult makes you immune. Your emergency warmth supplies need to go far, far beyond tossing a couple of extra blankets on the couch and calling it prepared. You need a comprehensive layering system that can keep your body temperature stable when the indoor temperature drops into the 30s or 20s Fahrenheit. Start with thermal emergency blankets, those metallic, reflective ones that look like giant pieces of aluminum foil. These work by reflecting your body heat back toward you instead of letting it radiate away into the cold air. You need multiple pairs of thick wool socks because your extremities lose heat fastest and frostbite can set in quickly. Wool works even when it's wet, unlike cotton, which becomes useless and dangerous when damp. Knit hats are absolutely essential. Your head can lose up to 50% of your body heat if it's uncovered, even when the rest of you is bundled up. Insulated gloves, heavy flannel blankets, thick quilts, thermal underwear that covers your core, heavy sweaters, and fleece-lined pants all need to be part of your kit. Those disposable chemical hand and foot warmers that activate when you open them are inexpensive and can make an enormous difference. Tuck them into your pockets, inside your boots, inside your gloves. That localized warmth can prevent frostbite and keep your core temperature stable for several hours per packet. Thrift stores are absolute treasure troves for this stuff. You can find genuine wool military blankets, heavy winter coats, insulated boots, and quality cold weather gear for a fraction of what it costs new. Don't let pride stop you from shopping secondhand when it comes to survival equipment. Here's the strategy that will save your life. Layer up immediately when the power fails, before you even start feeling cold. Once your core body temperature begins dropping, and it requires significantly more energy and heat to bring it back up, by that point you're already in danger. Use old-fashioned insulation techniques that people relied on for centuries. Stuff newspapers, paper bags, or other materials inside jackets or sleeping bags to create more layers of trapped air, which is one of the best insulators. Close off rooms you aren't using and seal them with towels under the doors to conserve heat in a smaller area. Hang heavy blankets over doorways to create thermal zones. Block every draft you can find. Stuff rolled towels along windowsills and under exterior doors. Designate one room as your survival room, where everyone stays together. This serves two purposes. The combined body heat of multiple people actually raises the ambient temperature in a confined space, and it keeps everyone's morale higher when they're together rather than isolated and terrified alone, when your smartphone becomes a useless brick. This leads directly to item number 6, which addresses a form of isolation that intensifies fear dramatically. When all modern communication networks fail, you need a battery-powered or hand-crank NOAA weather radio. Here's what happens during a major emergency. Cell phone towers lose their backup power after a few hours. Networks become so overwhelmed with people trying to call loved ones that calls won't connect. Internet service depends on infrastructure that's now offline. Your smartphone, which you rely on for absolutely everything, becomes nothing more than an expensive paperweight. But radio waves keep broadcasting. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration operates a network that continuously transmits localized weather updates, emergency information, evacuation orders, road closure notices, and estimated restoration timelines. However, these broadcasts happen on specific frequencies that your phone or regular AM/FM radio cannot pick up. You need a dedicated emergency weather radio. The best models offer multiple power sources because you can't predict what resources you'll have available. Regular batteries for immediate use, a hand crank for manual charging when batteries run out, and a small solar panel for slow charging in daylight. Some even include a USB port to charge your phone if needed. Knowing what's happening beyond your immediate surroundings is absolutely critical for making informed survival decisions. Are the roads passable yet? Has the storm actually ended, or is another wave coming? Are emergency services operational, or should you assume you're completely on your own? Are authorities recommending shelter in place or evacuation? Without this information, you're making blind decisions in a situation where one wrong choice could kill you. Should you try to drive to a warming shelter or hunker down at home? Should you burn through your fuel supply trying to heat the whole house or conserve it? Should you try to walk to check on an elderly neighbor, or is that suicidally dangerous? You simply cannot make these determinations without current information. The fire risk. Nobody talks about until it's too late. Item number 7 addresses another way people die during power outages: fire. Specifically, you need reliable lighting that will not burn your house down while you sleep. FEMA's data shows very clearly that residential fires spike dramatically during blackouts. Want to know why? Candles. People light candles for ambient light, then fall asleep from exhaustion, or leave them unattended while dealing with other problems, or knock them over while navigating in the dark. The house catches fire, and now you're dealing with a catastrophic fire emergency during a winter storm when fire departments may not be able to reach you. The solution is simple: modern LED flashlights and battery-powered lighting. You need at least 2 high-quality, powerful LED flashlights per household, minimum. LED technology has advanced so dramatically in recent years that these lights are brighter, last longer, and consume battery power far more efficiently than old incandescent bulbs. Store them somewhere you can find them in complete darkness. Everyone in the household should know exactly where they are. Headlamps are particularly valuable because they free up your hands. Try cooking, changing a baby's diaper, or navigating a dark stairwell while holding a flashlight. It's awkward and dangerous. A headlamp solves this completely. Stock up on chemical glow sticks, especially if you have children. These provide gentle, comforting ambient light that reduces fear in total darkness, and they're completely safe. No heat, no flame, no electrical components that can malfunction. Kids can hold them or wear them, which helps them feel less terrified. When you become the only doctor, available item. Number 8 might be what determines whether someone in your family lives or dies when professional medical help is completely inaccessible. Comprehensive medical preparedness supplies. When roads are impassable due to ice and snow, when ambulances can't get through, when emergency rooms are overwhelmed or closed, you become the first responder for your family. The only responder, potentially for days. Your first aid kit cannot be one of those tiny pre-made boxes with a few adhesive bandages and some antiseptic wipes. It needs to be robust and comprehensive. You need multiple sizes of sterile gauze pads for serious bleeding, medical tape, antiseptic wipes, a full range of pain relievers, acetaminophen, ibuprofen, aspirin, antihistamines for allergic reactions that could turn severe, an anti-diarrheal medication. Dysentery in an emergency situation is catastrophic. Antacids, precision tweezers for splinters and debris, sharp medical scissors, a reliable digital thermometer, electrolyte powder or tablets to treat dehydration, hydrocortisone cream for rashes and reactions, and antibiotic ointment to prevent infections and cuts and scrapes. If anyone in your household has specific medical conditions, this becomes exponentially more critical. Severe allergies requiring epinephrine auto-injectors? You need backups. Asthma requiring rescue inhalers? You need extras. Diabetes requiring insulin and blood glucose monitoring? You need emergency supplies that can last beyond the expected emergency duration. Talk to your physician now, before winter arrives, about obtaining extra supplies of critical prescription medications. As most doctors understand this necessity given recent disaster trends and will work with you. Having an extra week or two supply of vital medications could literally be the difference between life and death. When money becomes toilet paper and toilet paper becomes money. Item number 9 addresses something most people don't think about until they're standing in a dark store, desperate to buy supplies, staring at a cash-only sign. Physical currency in small denominations. When the electrical grid collapses, the entire digital economy instantly ceases to function. Credit card terminals are offline. Debit cards are useless. ATMs have no power. Banks are closed. Your wealth, no matter how substantial it might be in your bank account, becomes completely inaccessible. Cash becomes the only medium of exchange that works. In not theoretical dollars in a computer system somewhere. Actual physical bills and coins. Emergency management officials recommend keeping somewhere between $100 to $200 in small bills. Not 20s, and definitely not 50s or 100s. You need 1s, 5s, and 10s. Here's why. During a crisis, merchants who manage to stay open are operating under difficult conditions. Their cash registers aren't working. They're doing manual calculations and making change from whatever bills they have on hand. They're understandably nervous about getting stuck with large bills they can't break. If you show up with a $100 bill trying to buy a $12 transaction, they'll likely refuse the sale entirely rather than empty out all their small bills for your change. Store this cash in a waterproof, durable container where it can't be damaged by moisture or physical harm. Consider splitting it between your home emergency kit and a secure location in your vehicle in case you can't access your house. The plan nobody makes until it's too late. Item number 10 is possibly the most important non-physical element on this entire list, yet it's the one people most frequently overlook. A detailed, practiced family communication and reunification plan. You can have every physical supply imaginable, but if you can't locate your family members or verify their safety, nothing else matters. Your brain will be consumed by panic and fear, overriding any rational survival decision-making. Your plan needs 3 distinct, well-defined components that everyone in the household understands and can execute even under extreme stress. First, establish an out-of-state emergency contact person. During regional disasters, local phone networks become completely overwhelmed and jammed. Everyone is trying to call everyone else in the same geographic area simultaneously, and the system can't handle the load. However, long-distance calls to other regions often have a significantly better chance of connecting, because those networks aren't experiencing the same overload. Choose a trusted relative or friend who lives far from your area. Different state, different region entirely. This person becomes your family's central communication hub. If family members are separated, everyone knows to check in with this contact, who can then relay information between family members who can't reach each other directly. Second, determine and clearly communicate pre-established meeting locations. You need 2, an immediate meeting spot right outside your home, maybe a specific tree or the mailbox, in case of sudden evacuation due to fire or structural damage, and a secondary location outside your immediate neighborhood, perhaps a specific library, school, or community center, in case you cannot safely return to your home or the surrounding area is inaccessible. Everyone needs to know these locations by heart. Third, maintain hard copies of critical contact information. Write down all important phone numbers, addresses, and contact information on paper. Keep copies in multiple locations, in your wallet, in your emergency kit, in your car. When your cell phone dies and you can't access your contact list, this physical list becomes your only way to remember the numbers you need. The sound that travels. When your voice cannot. Item number 11 is deceptively simple but potentially life-saving. An emergency whistle for each family member. Imagine you're trapped under debris from a structural collapse, or you're injured and unable to move, or you're lost in whiteout blizzard conditions. Your voice carries only so far, especially in wind and storm conditions. Screaming for help exhausts you rapidly and damages your throat, and in cold conditions, that exertion makes you lose body heat faster. A high-decibel emergency whistle can be heard from hundreds of yards away, even in harsh conditions, and it requires minimal energy to use. The universal distress signal is 3 short, sharp blasts in succession, a pattern that's distinguishable from random noise. Every family member should have a whistle attached to their keychain, in their emergency bag, or on a lanyard they can wear. It costs almost nothing, and could mean the difference between being found and dying alone. The protective equipment. You'll desperately wish you had item number 12 covers basic protective equipment that becomes essential when dealing with disaster aftermath. High-quality dust masks and heavy-duty work gloves. Winter storms cause structural damage. Trees fall through roofs. Ceilings collapse from ice accumulation. Water pipes burst and flood walls, creating mold blooms. When you're sheltering in a damaged building or cleaning up afterward, you're breathing hazardous particles, dust, mold spores, and chemical contaminants. At N95 respirator masks, the kind that create a tight seal around your nose and mouth, filter out these dangerous particles and protect your lungs from serious harm. During disaster cleanup, respiratory illnesses and lung infections spike because people don't protect themselves from airborne hazards. Similarly, you'll be dealing with sharp, frozen debris, broken glass, jagged metal, fallen branches covered in ice, torn building materials with exposed nails. Trying to handle any of this with bare hands is asking for severe lacerations, puncture wounds, and cold injuries to your fingers. You need genuine, heavy-duty work gloves, leather or composite material that's rated for actual protective use, not garden gloves or lightweight knit gloves.